Welcome to another episode of It's Not What You Think. Today is going to be a cerebral episode as we explore music of brainwaves. Ooh, the copyright police won't let me play the theme song from the Twilight Zone, but you can use your imagination editing machine and plug in the theme from the Twilight Zone right here. Actually, we got something else coming up. Okay, this week's t-shirt comes from a guy named Albert up in New Jersey. And I hope I get his name correct. Let's see. The K is definitely not silent. Kaholic. How's that? You were the bacon to my eggs. There you go. Guy must love me. Thanks, alcoholic. So if you notice, we got some new music. And with the help of my friend Kyle Querick, who has his own show, Music Minded, go check it out. He's got a great show where he interviews people and talks about music, just the kind of thing you'd probably like. And so, here we are. We're going to talk about brain waves in music today. Our first contestant, it's not like a game show, right? Our first contestant over here from Connecticut is Evelynn Lucier. Evelynn Lucier has a piece called Music for Solo Performer. I want you to listen to this. Just give it 2 minutes of your attention. Okay, so music for solo performer. What were we listening to, and what does it have to do with brain waves? So this is what Evelynn Lucier did. He hooked up an EEG to himself, and the EEG records and measures the frequency of brain waves. What does that mean, the frequency of brain waves? And so you can imagine taking a ball at the end of a string and whipping it around, and depending on how fast you go, do 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 do, or get really really fast, that's how many cycles per second. Every time it goes around once is 1 cycle per second. And so if you can get it around 10 times in 1 second, that's 10 cycles per second. And that's how they measure your brain waves. Your brain will fire, and how fast is it firing? Is it firing 10 times a second? Then that would be 10 cycles per second. If it's firing 5 times per second, then that's 5 cycles per second. And they give these brain waves names depending on how fast they're going. So if they're going really fast, like 30 cycles per second, they're flashing on and off 30 times in 1 second, they call that beta waves. And that's usually indicative of when people are fully alert, like right now. You're probably operating at 30 cycles per second, beta waves, fast. Then when you if you slow all the way down to like 1 or 2, then that's sleeping. And your brain slows down, all the activity starts to become slower, and then that's dreaming. And then in between 30 and about 2 is what's called alpha waves, and that's the state of consciousness that we associate between completely awake and completely asleep. Okay, so now that you got some of that theory down, let's go back to Alvin Lucier. He puts in the EEG machine on his head to measure and detect the brain waves. And when his brain, and he's probably starting off at beta because he's concentrating, he's setting things up, he's putting things on. But then when he closes his eyes and he gets to relaxed, then the impulses of the brain slow down, the speed of the impulses slow down, and he enters alpha waves. And that's when the machine turns on, so to speak. It detects that he's now producing alpha waves. His brain, the neurons in his brain are flashing at about 15 cycles per second. And then once that happens, he sets up, it generates a pulse over at a speaker, and it vibrates the speaker. And you know, you've put your hand on a speaker, you can feel the vibration. Well, if you put an instrument like a bell in front of the speaker while it vibrates like that, then the bell will clinkle, 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 clinkle. And so when he produces alpha waves, he is setting off the vibration of the speaker, which is then playing the musical instrument. And so what you get is you get him playing musical instruments from producing alpha waves. So they are brainwave controlled musical composition. Now here I have a video for you to watch. Now that you understand the concept of it, watch a couple minutes of this video so that you can understand now what's going on and see it visually. So Alvin Lucier is an American composer of experimental music. After he composed the music for a solo performer, he went on to compose music for alpha waves, assorted percussion, and automated code relays. That's why I taught you what alpha waves was, so you understand, now you know what this means. When he says music for alpha waves, he's got his EEG biofeedback machine, and then when he goes into a state where his brain slows down and he starts pulsing at a slower cycles per second, he's producing alpha waves that he's going to play the musical instruments. Music for alpha waves, assorted percussion, and automated code relays. Let's listen to 2 or 3 minutes of this piece. David Rosenboom is an American composer and also a pioneer of using neurofeedback. Neurofeedback is the fancy term. Biofeedback is measuring and recording biological responses. Neurofeedback is recording brain responses. And that's what the whole alpha wave lecture was about. And so Alvin Lucier, he had his piece for solo performer. Well, guess what? David Rosenboom, he tops him, and he has a piece that has 4 performers hooked up in the neurofeedback equipment. And it's by the way, it's amplified. It's not just getting a signal and sending it to a speaker. It's an amplification process, because the signal from your brain is very weak. And so what we want to do is, once we detect it, then we want to amplify it so that we can vibrate speakers, and then or activate electronics, and that's how we get the audible sounds that we hear. From the album Brainwave Music, this is called Portable Gold and Philosopher's Stone. So we're really diving deep into the world of experimental music and discovering the interface between brain waves and composition. And of course, the first instinct would be to amplify our brain waves and let them play the musical instruments, and that's what we've heard. But now I want to move over to Eduardo Miranda. He does something similar yet unique. He has his EEG machine that detects brain waves, and he has it hooked up to a computer. He has a EEG. Can we edit that? He has an EEG machine that detects his brain waves, and he has it go into computer software. And the computer software then composes a piece of music based on the data that it's getting from his brainwaves. So the liner notes say from his piece sound to see that you're listening to the inner workings of a composer's mind. Ooh, get cue Twilight Zone music. Here, let's listen to a couple of minutes of Sound to See by Eduardo Miranda. So now we're using our brain to output music. And what happens if we were to take music to input brainwaves? We're doing a reverse. And that can happen and does happen with new audio technology called binaural beats. What we do is you have to listen to this with your headphones on in order for it to be extremely effective. So pull out your inexpensive audio headphones to really capture the rest of this show, the effects of this show. Okay, so let me give you a little more information about the brain. We talked about cycles per second and how the neurons flash. Well, an interesting phenomenon about the brain is that when you put something else flashing next to it, then the brain ends up synchronizing with it. That just happens with biological beings. You know, people synchronize with each other, and that's why when you listen to really fast music, then you start to get energized. Your brain starts firing at the rate of the music. And so when you listen to slower paced music and softer music, then your brain starts slowing down its pulsing, and then you feel more relaxed. And so music can be functional now. That's the simplified version of it. We can get into binaural beats. Maybe you'll have to sign up for my class and I'll teach you all about binaural beats. But what we have here is we have an auditory technology where we can assist the brain in slowing down and achieving altered states of consciousness. And you wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the meditation CDs come out. They have this, they have the binaural beats, which is a special way of creating two sounds and getting your brain to synchronize to the lower pitch and creating low range alpha waves. There's a company called HemiSync, which is very good. They put out very good CDs that utilize this auditory technology. Here's a little clip of some of their meditative music. And I saved the best for last. Let me introduce you to Denis Bedat. He's a great friend of mine. Him and I used to pal around, years back when I lived in San Diego. And when Denis was a graduate student, he took a course in parapsychology, and in it he learned that they did a study and all the participants who scored high on psychic phenomena were emitting low frequency alpha waves. And so Denis came up with a brilliant idea. If we can direct and influence our brainwaves with music and sound, why don't we make a piece of music that brings the brain into low range alpha waves, and that way we're boosting our psychic abilities. And so he came out with something called Psy-Boost. What a brilliant idea. And I'm going to let you listen to a couple minutes of this, in which the auditory technology pulls your brain waves down, allowing it to slow down and emit low range alpha waves. It's probably best to listen to it with headphones on. So if you can get your headphones on, then you'll really have your psychic powers at its maximum. And so I mentioned binaural beats, and we're going to end today's show on a piece of music that uses binaural beats. You probably heard of the famous band called Pearl Jam. Well, they came out with an album called Binaural, in which they utilized the technology of binaural beats, which is influencing the brain waves to pulse at a particular rate. And in this song, you can hear the bass come out and give you this low pulsing. Best to hear it on headphones, and you're gonna enjoy it. Until next week, bye for now. Alone, there's nothing like your boy.